Om Sahana Bhavati Sahana Bhunakti Sahana Viryam Bhavati Tejasvinati Vinati Naviti Sarvahari Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May we protect us, may we sustain us, may we draw strength together, may our study together be fruitful, and may we not find out. Lord, please, please. So, good evening, and we started our study now on the Katha Upanishad. And actually, the peace chant we just did, which we do for all our classes, and generally drop around Krishna order. It's recommended that's how we start any kind of program. That peace chant is started Katha Upanishad, as well as it's also found in some of the other Upanishads. But as you know, Hinduism is based, as I say, on the Vedas. And as you know, there are 4 different Vedas: Rig, Yajur, Sama, and the Atharva Veda. So each Veda, within each Veda, there's 4 levels. You have for the Vedas themselves, what we call the Rig, Yajur, Sama, and Atharva Vedas. The books you find down in the bookstore, those are actually called the Samhita. And they were the actual prayers and chants and hymns that were used during the performance of the ritual worship back in Yagnas, back in ancient times. Those are what the priests, the mantras they actually chanted. But along with and that's called the Samhita. Now along with the Samhita, you have a section known as the Brahmanas. Now the Brahmanas, they were like instructions on how to perform the worship, when it should be performed, what worship should be used for what purpose, what the mantras were, what they meant, and so forth. So those instructions about the performance, those are known as the Brahmanas. And then third, you have the Aryakas. Now the Aryakas were meant for people who had reached that stage in life. It's known as Vanaprastha, where they went off into the forest, and there began to turn their thought and their study towards spiritual things. And in the Aryakas, they basically took the ritual worship, which the people had lived with. And actually, back in these ancient times, very ancient times, these yajnas, this worship was a very important part of life, a central feature of life. So in the Aryakas, they took these worships, but they began to then focus deeper on the inner meaning of it, the spiritual significance. And then finally, the 4th level is known as the Upanishads. And this is where they spoke directly about this is the spiritual truth. This is the ultimate reality. Now, the first 2, Samhitas and Brahmanas, these are of karma kanda, the work portion, because they were concerned directly with performing the worship itself. Now, the Aryakas are called the Upasana kanda because they're like a meditation on the inner meaning of the worship. And finally, the Upanishads are called the Jnana kanda, knowledge portion, because this is where we got to the pure, unadulterated spiritual truth. And so when we say that Hinduism, Vedanta, is based upon the Vedas, it's really referring primarily to the Upanishads, which is where you get the spiritual truth. And it's both kind of unadulterated form. And the basic meaning of Veda, as you know, is comes from deed, meaning to know. And as Swami Varadananda said, explained that actually by Veda, it doesn't mean just the books, not even just the Upanishads. What it means is that spiritual knowledge, that spiritual realization, which was obtained by the ancient rishis back in India. And in other words, when you speak of the knowledge of Brahman, it doesn't mean reading a lot of books about Brahman. It doesn't mean having a lot of ideas about Brahman. It means having the consciousness of Brahman. And actually, this was the basis of Zen Buddhism. In the Middle Ages, Buddhism had become a very intellectual religion. They had great universities and great kind of scholars and things going on. But then one day a cook in the ashram, he said that Buddhism isn't to be found in all these books and research papers and things like that. Buddhism, if you want to know what Buddhism is, it's the consciousness of Buddhism. It's attaining that same consciousness that Buddha had. So as Swami Varadananda pointed out, the real meaning of Veda is that it's that spiritual enlightenment, that spiritual realization which the ancient sages had attained. And this is the purpose of all the scriptures and dignities to lead us to the actual experience of that truth. Now, in the each of the Upanishads is connected with one of the Vedas. You know, each Veda, so they have certain Brahmanas, the Aryakas, and the Upanishads are connected with that particular Veda. Now, in the Katha Upanishad, though, we're not quite sure which Veda it goes with. The most common opinion is that it's connected with the Krishna Yajna Veda, but some scholars say, no, it's actually Sama Veda, some say it's actually the Atharva Veda. But it's not, all this kind of background is not really that important, because as I mentioned last week, there's a difference between spiritual study and academic study. When I first came to Chicago, back in '73 in Swami Varadananda's time, at first I was a little disappointed in his classes. I thought it'd be like college courses, but they talk about this philosophy and so and so, and he founded the school of philosophy and he taught this and that, and then maybe you take a final exam and become a Swami. But I was kind of disappointed because we just kept talking about God realization. So I didn't care who said what or what. It was just always talking about the renunciation of God realization. But this is for spiritual study. For academic study, yes, you need all the details, all the dates. You write scholarly articles and argue back and forth. But for spiritual study, the whole purpose is to take you through that knowledge, through that actual experience of the truth. And so it's not through book learning that you attain that truth, but it's book learning, with scholarship, the study of scriptures. They have a very important role to play in a person's development, because they're like the map. That if you want to go somewhere, you have to have a clear idea of where it is and how to get there. For example, I know I'm here. If I want to go to Ganges, just take the 355 down to 80, over to 294, into 94, then I pick up Route 186, go to exit 30, turn off there, and Ganges. If all I have is kind of a vague idea, then it takes 2.5 hours. Sure. But now, if all I have is just kind of a vague idea that Ganges is in Michigan somewhere, it's going to take a lot longer than 2.5 hours to get there. I'll be just driving all over the place. Once there was a man, he was driving along a country road, and he was feeling kind of lost. And so he stopped, he asked the farmer, he saw a farmer, he stopped and asked him, he said, how far is it to Waynesboro? And the farmer said, well, if you keep going in the same direction, it's about 25,000 miles. But if you go in that direction, it's 2 miles. So most of us, in our spiritual religion, most people tend to be on the 25,000 mile route. We all have this sense that I'm searching for something, I'm lacking something. There's something I'm trying to find. We call it the search for happiness. But the great majority think, I'm going to find it out here. And we look out at the world and we say, oh, this is, if I have more money, I'll be happy. If I have a bigger home, I'll be happy. If I have a BMW, I'll be happy. Yeah. And like we're seeking love and success or fame or status in society. Like we're looking out of the world and saying, this thing here is going to give me happiness. And that's like the man on his 45,000-mile journey. We're looking for happiness. We're looking for that thing that's lacking or we're missing. And we're looking in exactly the opposite direction, where we'll find it. And this is what the scriptures, and this is kind of the main message of the Katha Upanishad, is to bring this understanding that the thing that you're looking for is not something you find in the external world that you experience in the senses. It's something you find inside in your own inner consciousness. And this is what the Upanishads, and all Upanishads will do, all the Vedanta will do, this is ultimately what it tells us. And they tell us that the thing that we're seeking, that seems so difficult to find, is actually, as Tennyson said, is closer than hands and feet, is closer than breathing. It's right with us. It's right with us all the time. But if you have a beautiful painting, it's in Mona Lisa or something, but you're facing it in the opposite direction, you don't see it. It's right close. You know, Swami Krishna used to sometimes, he'd have somebody sitting next to him on his bed, and he'd hold a towel in front of his face. And he said, I'm sitting right next to you, but you can't see me because the towel, because the Maya of the towel is there, separated. And he said, this is the whole problem. When you learn to look in the right direction, when you learn to look within your own inner consciousness, then you begin to uncover what you've been seeking. So this was, in the ancient times in India, you had the great rishis, the great sages, and they made three great discoveries. First of all, they discovered that every person, every single individual, is an immortal soul, an immortal spirit, and which they call the Atma. Secondly, they discovered that behind the whole universe, within the entire universe, is one universal consciousness, which they call Brahman. And then finally, they discovered that there's a unity of things, that every single person, every single individual is an expression of one consciousness. And so this is a great revelation of the Upanishads, and it's the central truth that is experienced by the sages and saints in all the different religions. You know, Sri Krishna used to say, all jackals are alike. Anybody who's actually experienced God, they're talking this oneness, the same language. You see that? But at the secondary level, they have all the differences. You know, each religion, they follow their own particular teacher, their own particular scripture, their own particular theology, and so forth. And so they're all different. But at the core, you know, if you understand, and this is the Vedic understanding, if you understand that religion means attaining the consciousness of God, and whatever will bring you to that unity with God, to that oneness with God, is religion. And this is, when that's understood, then you can appreciate how all the different religions, they all can be different paths going to the same ultimate destination. And this is the basis for finding harmony. Not only harmony in life, but harmony with everybody. Because as a person grows, approaches this spiritual consciousness.
Is it on? What's up with that? Okay. Very nice. thought I put it in the wrong place. Okay. I don't know how that affects our new streaming and stuff. Okay. So anyway, so this is what the ancient rishis discovered. They said this wonderful realm there, and then they brought it to people and said, we discovered this wonderful land. And actually, anybody who's on the spiritual path is on a kind of great adventure. Because we know what this world is after the time. We know what life is like and what the world has to offer. But when you begin to seek God, you begin to seek Spirit, then you're entering an unknown territory. Something you haven't experienced before. Something you've not known before. And so it's all kind of a great adventure. So we begin the Katha Upanishad. Now, as you remember in the Gita, Bhagavad Gita, as you know, chapter 1, it was just set the stage. That's the story about how Arjuna asked Krishna to take his chariot out between the two armies, and then he saw his teachers and friends and relatives, everything on both sides. They became despondent. They didn't know what to do. And so that first chapter was just setting the scene in the teaching. It didn't start until the second chapter. Same thing is true of the Katha Upanishad. The first chapter tells just the story about Nachiketa, about his father's sacrifice and so forth. The actual teaching, the spiritual teachings, they don't begin until the second chapter. Om Usham Haridojas Avasaha Sarva Vedasam Tada Tashaha Nachiketa Namaputra Vasa. So Vajasravasa, desirous of heavenly rewards, gave away all his possessions at the Vishwajit sacrifice. He had a son, Nachiketas by name. So the Vishwajit sacrifice, this was a sacrifice, and it was supposed to take place in one day, in which a person was supposed to either give away all his cattle, 1,000 cattle, or give away all his possessions, except for his land and his eldest son's inheritance. So in other words, a person was supposed to give away everything, and then as a result, he would attain heaven. So this was the sacrifice which Nachiketas' father, Vajasravasa, performed. So Vajasravasa, desirous of heavenly rewards, gave away all his possessions at the Vishwajit sacrifice. He had a son, Nachiketas by name. Tamham Kumaram Santa Dakshinasu Niyamanasu Shraddha Vivesha Somanyata. So when the final gifts were being brought for distribution among the priests, Nachiketas, though still a boy, was filled with Shraddha, and he thought. So Shraddha, Nachiketas, is known for two things. One is Shraddha, faith. The other is his stand on truthfulness, his standing on truth. So Shraddha, the Lord here says, that Shraddha, it is a mental attitude constituted primarily of sincerity of purpose, humility, reverence, and firm faith that never wavers in doubts. It is explained as a strong belief in the reality of the teachings of the Scriptures. Shraddha is considered as one of the basic virtues necessary for the development of spiritual life. Without it, no spirituality can be attained. Hence, the Shruti tells in the beginning that Nachiketas had the requisite Shraddha that enabled him to go to Yama and give instruction on the higher mysteries of spiritual life as described in the sequel. So Shraddha, it means faith. But it means more than just faith. And actually so many of the Sanskrit words, there's really no direct translation in English, like the word dharma. But Shraddha means not just faith, but confidence, sincerity of purpose, commitment. All these things make up Shraddha. But Shraddha, it doesn't mean just blind faith. You know, when I was in high school, we had a teacher. He was just out of the seminary. He just graduated from seminary. I went to Catholic high school. So his priest, he just graduated from seminary, and he got the joy of trying to teach theology to teenagers. And so they were always just bothering one girl in particular. She always had all kinds of things. And he'd always kind of argue up to the point. And then he'd say, well, you just got to believe it. There's an article of faith, you just got to believe it. So it's not that kind of faith, not that kind of dogmatic faith, which is what's in the book here. So you just got to believe it, and you can't think about it, you can't question it or anything. You just got to say, believe it, and not think about it. But Shraddha is based upon a kind of a working faith. For example, you go to a doctor's office. Now, you don't know if he can cure you or not, but you see, he's got the diploma on the wall, he's had the training, and so you have faith. Yes, he's a doctor, he's qualified, he should be able to cure me. But if he doesn't, after a while, then you go get a second opinion or something. But so Shraddha is also a kind of a working faith of that. As you go, you're going deeper into the knowledge and beginning to understand it deeper, and then you realize, well, this isn't quite right. You have to move this way. And so it's a growing thing. But it's based upon this tremendous commitment, this tremendous sincerity, and this confidence. When we speak of spiritual life, we don't know. The great majority of people, they don't have any idea what spiritual life is or what God is. But you have that faith, you have that confidence that says, well, it is there. I haven't experienced it yet, but I believe it's there. And, I know it's there, and so you move forward. But the real Shraddha, the real faith, as Swami Varadananda pointed out, the real faith comes through experience. Then let's say is that first, yes, you need a kind of a belief in something that you haven't yet experienced, that you don't yet know for yourself. You have to have some sense that this person is a genuine teacher, or this scripture is telling me right. But ultimately, the real true faith, the solid faith, conviction, comes when you actually begin to experience something. And yes, it's a great kind of first plateau in spiritual life is when you get to that point where you're actually getting something out. When a person starts meditating, that person may be dry, kind of boring, and you're wondering, should I bother with this, or should I, is it a waste of time or not? But if you have some experiences that just at least keeps the joy of, yes, I'm feeling good now, this is giving me happiness, then you've got some conviction, you've got some actual solid thing to hold on to, and that then draws you deeper. In the beginning stages, usually our difficulty is that the world is very real for us, and God is sort of vague and unreal, like a dream. It's an idea. People said, yes, we should do this, yes, we were convinced, yes, this is the right thing to do, but we don't have conviction. And as I pointed out before, people work tremendously hard, with tremendous commitment for the things of the world, to achieve success in the world. Because it's solid. They say, yes, if I study, if I get my master's or PhD, I'll have a good life, a good career. And so I'll work very, very hard in order to achieve that. But often when we come to religion, we lack that same drive, that same intensity. And Sri Ramakrishna said once that if anybody would have the desire of the mother for her child, the husband for her chaste wife, or the miser for his money, any of these kind of worldly desires, if we could have that intensity of desire for God, we could quickly realize it. And Swami Varadananda, Sri Krishna's disciple said, people will spend so many years studying in school, through high school, college, and advanced degree. He said, and they work so hard. But he said, if anybody worked that hard to realize that, they would realize it. And so, but we just don't have that intense desire that drives us for the things of the world. So one of the first important plateaus in intense spiritual life is to get something out of it. To get some happiness, some experience, some level of satisfaction. And then you begin to, oh, this is okay, this is good. And that keeps you going. So, Nachiketas, he was known especially for being filled with Shraddha. And even though he was a young boy, he had that conviction, that faith in the teaching of the scriptures and in the spiritual life. So then he thought, Hito Tatkal Jagatunam Dudha Doha Nirindriya Ananta Nama Telokas Tansa Gachati Tadarat. So he said, joyless verily are those worlds to which he goes who gives such cows that have drunk their water, eaten their hay, and given their milk for the last time, and would calve no more. So the idea behind the Vishwajit sacrifice was that you were supposed to give away all the best of what you had. Just like in worship. No, you're supposed to give your best things. You're not supposed to give all rotten fruit and things. It's supposed to be the other kind of the best of what you have. And so instead of that, Vajasana, Nachiketas' father, was giving away all the old cows. Now back in Swami Varadananda's time, people used to donate cards that had eaten their last grass and beat their last beat. And so I've had some experience of this. When we had our sub-center down in Florida, I was down there for 2 years. For 2 years, I drove a rusted out old gremlin that used to amuse the mechanic every time we brought him in. So this instead of sending the best of what he's had, Vajasana is giving all the old throwaway things. And Nachiketas is thinking, what he's supposed to be doing. He's giving the best, but instead all these old cows and things he's giving away. And actually many of the cows and things like this, they're supposed to go to the Brahmins, to the priest, and to the priests who are performing the worship and other Brahmins. And you see this often in the old scriptures, that dana, giving, is something often you mention you should give to the Brahmins. And you wonder, well, why Brahmins? Why not Shudras? Why not Kshatriyas? But actually, the true Brahmins, they never accepted any pay for what they did. They performed the rituals or they gave teachings, but they would never accept, ask to be paid. And so they lived entirely on the gifts of people. Swami Varadananda's father was one of the very top priests in Maharashtra. The other priests, they would send their students to his father to get their chanting verified and things. But Swami Varadananda was taught with very poor, very hard life they had. Because better than the other true priests, the true Brahmin, he doesn't ask for any money. He just, they do the worship, and then they usually get a meal, and then they sometimes a few rupees or a bunch of bananas or something. But they don't, and this was particularly true in the ancient times, so they survived kind of entirely on the gifts, the donations. Swami Chaitananda, when he took over the center at St. Louis, he was in very bad shape financially. The previous one was Swami Prakashananda, Satprakashananda. He was a great jnani. He used to meditate 4 hours every morning, and he could care less about money. So Swami had to really struggle. So the Chaitananda really was. And he said one day, this local yoga teacher, and he kind of pulled himself. He said, "Look, Father, see, I'm making $6,000 a month." He said, "No, what we should do, we should team up, because with your opal robes, we can make a killing." And we'll split 50-50. But Brahmins, they don't think like that. You know? They don't have that business sense. Anyway, so this is why when we read in the scriptures how they say they give gifts to Brahmins, this was because this was their sole kind of income. And so it was part of society back then. So anyway, Dachakitas, realizing that his father is really kind of distorting worship. He's likely to get a bad result instead of a good result. He then says, Saho Acha Pitaram Tata Kasmanimam Dashasviti Titiyam Tam Hovacha Nityaveta Dadamiti. So he said to his father, he said, "Father, to whom will you give me?" He repeated this a second and a third time, and then the father replied angrily, "Unto death I give thee." And then the note says that seeing the attitude of the father in making presents of such useless cows, Nachiketas understood that he had no mind to fulfill his vow strictly by giving away all his possessions as a sacrifice. And so he thought that it was his duty as a son to save his father from this terrible sin of lying. Because the vow required that his father should give away all his possessions. And he being the son, and so a possession of his father, strictly speaking, he should also be given away to the priest. Hence, he wanted to press his father indirectly to keep his vow. And he asked to whom he would give him. Here the Shraddha assumed the form of a zealous devotion to truth in the mind of Nachiketas. The father did not reply at first, but when Nachiketas pressed his question twice and thrice persistently, he got angry at the impudence of the young boy and replied that he would deliver him unto death. A common way of rebuke, meaning I shall finish with thee henceforth. So in other words, as Nachiketas pressed his father, who will you give me to? The third time the father became angry. He said, "Oh, I give you to death." And this again, as I mentioned, the two characteristics of Nachiketas were his Shraddha, his strong faith, his strong conviction, and also his abidance in the truth. He was holding on to the truth at any cost. He saw that his father, who was presenting himself, people do this in public, they make a big show, but they actually give a little bit. And so he saw that his father wasn't honestly performing worship. And so he held the truth of who will you give me to? Now, truth is one of the most fundamental of spiritual practice, of spiritual necessity. You remember the case of Krishna? How he said, how he prayed to the Divine Mother. "Oh, Mother, here's your virtue, here's your vice, take them both. Here's your fame, here's your unfame, you ought to take them both." Like that. He offered everything to the Divine Mother. But he said, "I couldn't offer truth." Because if I said, "Here's your truth," what are you going to stand on? Basically, God, Brahman, the ultimate, is truth. That's the most, you can say, fundamental reality. He is what is. You know, and you remember when God appeared to Moses in the burning bush, and he said, "I am that I am." So, standing on truth is the foundation of our whole kind of steadiness of character. And this is psychologically, this is a very important idea. Because most people have created so much imagination, so much personality, so much effort going into trying to project something into the world, project a certain image into the world, And after some time, they don't know who they are. Literally, there's a whole kind of mass of thoughts and desires and feelings and all kinds of things, but they don't know who they are. And this is kind of standard in human development, is that when you usually about the time you reach adolescence, you become kind of socially conscious and you tend to develop a personality and you tend to want to project an image to the world. I know you want to be like James Bond or you want to be this or that. And so you're trying to project this image into the world. And yet all the time, it's not the real you. It's not who you are, it's not what you are. It's entirely something created in your own mind, your own imagination, out of your own desires and feelings and so forth. And it puts you on a very unstable, a very unsteady platform where any little law can disturb you. You're going around trying to be James Bond and somebody says, oh, what a dork. And then you're completely crashed out. You say, oh, bye. And so, like that, and so people often live their life with an underlying kind of fear and insecurity and stress because they're living false. As soon as a person begins to get a sense of truth, of reality, everything stays down and your whole being becomes stable. You're not wondering, how can I make an impression on this person? How can I make this person like me? How can I kind of project my image on this person? You are what you are. And you just then begin to respond to life, to people, just as what comes naturally. And then you find that so much of the stress, the anxiety, and everything else that people suffer for, it goes away. And instead, it becomes a strong, kind of solid foundation. And this goes very deep. In addition to our own kind of the fictions and imaginations, there's also the effect of society on us. That whatever group of people we're with, we gradually tend to become like them. Because it's in human nature, we want to kind of fit in. And so we say have a group of people at work that we work with. And slowly we find out beginning to talk a little like them, beginning to kind of think like them and so forth. This is why one of the important things in the beginning is about satsang, company of the whole. Because if you, let's say you're spending on your time, you've got spiritual yearning, you've got some spiritual desire, but you're spending all your time in a motorcycle game. Well, it's very difficult to keep your values up, these high spiritual ideals when you're surrounded by people who don't believe in them at all. So satsang, it gives a psychological support. It helps you realize there's other people also with these spiritual desires, this spiritual yearning, and it's a great kind of help. But the strongest help is realize. And this is most people, it takes a long time, realize that the opinions of other people, they don't matter. One thing, most people, and there are some people who always got critical opinions, they always say something bad about somebody, but it's their understanding of the person, their insight of the person is extremely superficial. It's just their nature. You know, say bad things about people, or the gossip about people, and so forth. So you realize that just because other people are saying, oh, this is wrong, and in early days, in America, a lot of the early Vedantins, they had trouble. They're meditating. So people say, oh, you're going crazy, you need to see a psychiatrist. Like that, it was difficult because the culture didn't understand at all. And so, when you begin to find a little sense of your real self, you realize this is it, this is me, this is what I am, and what other people say, the opinions of other people, they don't matter. I am what I am. And this is Nachiketas. This is kind of the source of his great strength. Is this, I hold firm the truth. This is what I am. This is what the truth is. And there's no kind of doubt or concern or kind of public opinion polls or anything. He just does what he does because he's standing on truth. And by truth, it is ultimately brings you to God. Because this is the fundamental definition of what God is that He is the truth. He is that which is real. Everything else that comes by it. It's like the projection, the show, the drama going on. But the underlying reality is Brahman. And so this is why truth is such a fundamental thing. And it gives such a tremendous strength and character to a person. When we're always worried about other people's opinions, we become very kind of weak and unstable in character. But when you're standing on truth, then you become solid. And eventually, the most truthful person is the man's steady wisdom. That the one who's totally centered on his own real nature, his own true self, he is not disturbed by anything. Nothing can affect him. Nothing can cause him sorrow or fear or anything else. So, one of the basic approaches with spirituality is simply begin asking, who am I? Am I this person? Am I this feeling? Am I this kind of personality, this image that I've created? Or what am I? Where am I? And so as a person begins to look into that, slowly he begins to realize that all these other things aren't me. And he begins to get a sense of what I'm not. Now in Shakra, all of this is called upadis. That's called limiting adjuncts. And upadi is something that you attach to the reality, to the truth, is something that you stick on it. And then you say, oh, I'm that. So all of us as human beings, we're all going around saying, oh, I'm handsome, or I'm ugly, I'm intelligent, or I'm stupid, or like that. We have all these different ideas about ourselves and about other people that we put on them. But oftentimes, God's the only reality. There's only God there. There's only God within you, there's only God within the other person. But you're seeing, oh, this person is a very pleasant person, and then you say, oh, I like him. This person is not pleasant, and I say, I am like him. But in truth, it's all God. It's all the one reality. And so, in Chandra, they say, as you remove these upadis, and there's society. As we grow, society gives us so many upadis, so many attitudes and opinions about other people, this group of people, that group of people. But as you begin to kind of remove those upadis, you're approaching that core truth, which is the reality of what you are, who you really are. And the more you do this, the more fearlessness comes, the more stability, and all the anxieties and worries and things, they begin to disappear, and you're standing on something very solid, and eventually that solid thing begins to unfold in its reality, its true nature. So this, like I said, the two great qualities of Nachiketas, Shraddha and truth. So when he saw then that his father was not performing the worship faithfully and according to how he was supposed to be doing it, then he said, well then Father, who will you give me to? Pahuna me nikatamo, pahuna me madhyamaha, kinsvid yamasya kartavyam yanaya tya karishyati. So at this, after his father told him to go to Yama, it says, at this Nachiketas thought within himself, of many of his followers, I am the first. Of many, I am the middlemost, the middling disciple again, but never have I been the worst. Why then as my father said, that he would give me to death. What work of Yama will be accomplished by his giving me unto him? So again we see in Nachiketa's truth, that he says, I'm not the best. Sometimes I'm the first, right? In some things, other things I'm kind of middle rank, but I do say I'm not the worst. He doesn't have this ego saying, oh, I am the best. It's one of the other Upanishads. Remember, there's a boy, he was the son of a servant woman, and he went to the guru and asked him, so the guru then asked him, well, what is your heritage? Who's your parents and so forth? And then the boy said, well, I don't actually know. You see, my mother was a maidservant, and then I don't know who my father was. And then what my caste is. And then the guru said, well, only a Brahmin can speak such truths. So he accepted it as his truth. So I think Nachiketa is fully truthful. And yet this is, when we're abiding the truth, we can have a clear idea of who we are and what we are. Okay, I'm not the best, but I'm not the worst. I'm in the middle, kind of somewhere. And he said, but then why the hell then has my father said that he would give me to death? He says, what work of Yama will be accomplished by his giving me unto him? Anupasya yata pure pratipasya tapare sasyam viva marjaha pachyate sasyam viva jayate puna. So remember how the ancients behaved, and mark also how others do now. Like corn, the mortal ripens and falls, and like corn is born again. So the commentator, and this is from the notes, the commentator tells us that Nachiketa, finding no reason as to why his father should desire to give him the Yama, came to the conclusion that he must have told so in anger. Yet a father's word must not be infringed. Nachiketa thought, and so he came and told his father what is mentioned in this verse, by way of an exhortation to him not to swerve from truth for the sake of an ephemeral life which is bound to decay in course of time, and hence to keep his word by actually sending him to Yama. And then he had reminded his father how the ancients behaved, in other words, how the ancient forefathers never abandoned truth at any cost. And how the others do now, in other words, how the sages and saints, also of the present age, they never serve to swerve from the path of truth, undeterred by any consideration whatsoever. And the third note is where it says that like corn, it is born again. It says, like corn, it says that as corn has this definite time of harvest when it ripens, and again the proper seed time when it is sown and sprouts and grows, so a man goes round the cycle of birth and death. His birth signifies death. Death again indicates his future birth. Hence death should not be bemoaned or birth hailed. Here is a clear reference to the law of karma and the doctrine of reincarnation. So his father, Nachiketa's father, in a fit of anger, he said, I will send you to Yama. But then when the father repented, calm down, come back. But Nachiketa, again, because he was so established in truth, he said, no, you've given your word. You made you say you can't go back on that now. And he mentions how the ancient people, how they honored truth, and how in modern times the saints and sages, how carefully they followed through. And then the Nachiketa says, you're sending me to death, you're sending me now. People come and go all the time. Corn comes and grows goes out, and again they comes and grows. So he said, he's not important. And Nachiketa is willing to abide by truth, even if it means going to Yama. Even if he's going to the ground of death, he says, no, this is what has to be done. And this is kind of real criteria of truth, is that a person holds to it regardless of consequences. In the case of Ramakrishna's father, that he lived in a village, and the local Zamindar, the landlord of the village, he came to Ramakrishna's father, and he said, I have a court case Shavin suit, I want you to go into court and say this. And if you do, I'll give you all kinds of money, everything, I'll pay you handsomely, but if you don't, I'm going to evict you. And so, all you have to do is just say this little lie on my behalf, and Ramakrishna's father refused. And so, he ended up losing his house, his possessions, everything. He just left the village up and eventually ended up in Kamakata. But I think he wouldn't abandon because it was the truth. Not because he thought he'd get a up from perjury or something. It was because if there's such abiding by truth, it gives such a solidity, a steadiness to your personality. And it's clear cut. Okay, this is the truth. So I do that. I hold on to that. And then there comes a tremendous strength of character. So even though his father kind of repented and was willing to take back the curse or whatever, he says, no, that you said it, you're giving the word now you have to follow it. Vaishvanaraha Pavishitya Titir Brahmo Grihan Tashai Hitam Shantim Kurvanti Hara Vaishvas Vato Daka. So Nachiketas' father, realizing the glory of truthfulness, at last sent Nachiketas to Yama. But Yama was not at home then. So Nachiketas, in expectation of his arrival, waited for 3 days without food. On Yama's return, his wife and followers told him thus. So as fire and the Brahmana guest enters the house, they, good householders, greet him with this peace offering. So, O Vaishvasvata, bring water. So this verse 7, it says that as fire is not intended to make consume the whole house, so of the Brahmana's indignation destroys all the happiness of the household, if he is not properly received when he comes as a guest. In the peace offering, it says that it has been the custom among the Hindus from very ancient times to consider the stranger who comes to seek hospitality at a householder's door as a veritable embodiment of God, and to worship him as such. The first thing that a host should offer him is water, padma, by which he should wash his feet. Then a seat, asana. Next he should worship him with a respectable offering called argyam, consisting of rice, flour, durga, water, etc. And he should be satisfied with food and other gifts. And this is quoting from Shriti. So in other words, so Nachiketas' father convinced by Nachiketas that he has to kind of avoid by the truth. Then he says, okay, you can go to Yama. And then Nachiketas goes to the house of Yama, but Yama's not home, he's out, so Nachiketas has to sit for 3 days without food, waiting for his return. And actually, in the Hindu custom, in Hindu society, the guest was considered one of the gods, as an aspect of God, and it was, you were supposed to treat with proper respect, particularly Brahmin guests. You were supposed to treat with proper respect and courtesy and so forth. And I thought Indian people were very courteous. And I think they're also just having fun, and they're so happy, to have, to treat you, to feed you. And one of the worst experiences was when we were in Nagpur, in Swami Varadananda, and he was from Nagpur, so we went out visiting all these people. We went to 7 different houses. Every single house fed us. It's never been so sick in my life. The very last house, he gave us these fried chilies. That just did me in. But anyway, it's a very important part of culture. And there's hospitality. It's more, not that real, heartfelt. It's not huh?
Yeah, how you do it?
Yes, good. And it's really one of the people in India, there's a lot of people in India, and they're so open to each other. Like you do right on the bus, and they pass around food and babies, and they chat. In Chicago, people don't do that. If somebody talks to you and you think, oh, he's a panhandler, you back off, but it's like a lack of defensiveness and barrier. People, there's so many people, I guess you've got to learn how to get along. It's just a very wonderful experience. It's simple, joy, and general joy, genuine happiness that you get. So this is, let's say, the guest was supposed to be treated by God, especially a Brahmin guest. And so says Nachiketas came to his house, nobody was there, and he sat for 3 days without food. Then Yama, actually this was the rest of the story. Yama was saying, since you sat here for 3 days without food, please accept my apologies, and I'm going to give you 3 rules. So that's where the story will continue. So any questions? Like so this first chapter, like I said, like the first chapter, it's basically just setting the stage for the spiritual teachings. But this, as I mentioned last week, this story, it's an important part of the scripture. As I mentioned last week, that in all the teachings that you find in Bhagavad Gita, you find in fact in any book of Indian philosophy. But because the Gita was spoken from the battlefield of Kurukshetra by Krishna, the incarnation of God, millions of people have been inspired by it. Millions of people have shaped their lives by it. You don't do that over a book of philosophy mostly. But so this human story, it makes it alive. It makes it something that really brings it alive. And this is the principle also behind the Puranas. That if you take these spiritual truths, which you find in the Upanishad, but also you shroud with stories now, so to make it interesting to people. And like I said, and it makes it living. It makes it something not just a dead, abstract and metaphysics, but it's actually kind of inspiring thing. And so this story is Swami Varadananda, who's talking about it? From how, various important people. He's come with his own Andaman Islands. And he's very important. But judges, things like that. And he was a very poor senator at the time because he was just starting out. But he said, well, okay, he would give them word and things like that. And he said, then he'd meet them years later, maybe. And all they remembered was a word. They didn't remember all his hours of talking with him. Couldn't remember anything he said. But they went, oh yeah, you treated me so nicely. You gave me more. And so I think that actually, and these are parents. They don't know what to do about the children, how to get them to behave. The main thing is, if the love is there, it inspires the child, and then everything else doesn't work. But if you don't have that kind of real, genuine love, and then you just try to straighten out to the child, then it runs into all kinds of problems. So in other words, people respond to love, and spiritual teaching is really, like I said, we're not dealing with academic study. He's not, even if you don't remember, everything that's said, it's kind of the inspiration that comes. Once I asked a lot of our regular devotees back in Hyde Park, we used to come to all the regular Tuesday, Friday classes, the quarterly kind of very regular people. And once I asked them, well, why do you come? And they all said the same thing. They don't really care what the Swami says, but they just like the atmosphere. They like to just come and be in the atmosphere. And so that's really, that's the important thing. I said for this, technically the most important thing we can do in this shrine is just come sit and meditate. Quiet. That's what it's really kind of meant for. Everything else, all the teaching, this is to help, to kind of bring it in, to grind it in. But the goal in the spiritual teaching is not so much acquiring lots of information as it is having that information in deep. So that it begins to really kind of develop your inner kind of spiritual consciousness. Okay, so we stop there. So Nachiketas, he's gone to the abode of God of death. He's waited in now next week in Yama. So this Swami Varadananda, he's already gone. He left tonight, went to Ganges. Tomorrow in Ganges from 10:30 to 11:30, he's going to give a class there. He's trying to put things up on Ganges. And so he's giving a class there from 10:30 to 11:30 on meditation, why, and how. And then this Sunday he'll be back here, and he will give a talk on meditation, theory and practice, part 2. He's got a series of 10 lectures on meditation, theory and practice. Starting out first more of the theory, but he wants to get into the practice too. So all that's going on. And then tomorrow night we have Rama at 6:30, right after the arti. And then Tuesday, Swami will do his class on Gospel Shalom, the 5th day of the Gospel Shalom. So all that's going to. And then on the 18th he leaves, he goes to Washington, D.C., where they're inaugurating a new temple addition. Construction. All the Swamis in the United States will be there for that. So he'll be gone from the 18th to the 23rd. Om Asatoma Sabhya Tamasoma Jyotirvaya Nityanam Amritam Raya Om Shanti Shanti. Oh Lord, lead us from the unreal to the real. Lead us from darkness to light. And lead us from death to immortality and peace